If you've got an SSL Fusion already, or if you're thinking about getting one, it's probably worth knowing there's a little bit more about it than meets the eye. So we're going to show you today. SSL released the Fusion a few years ago, and it was primarily marketed as a mix bus processor. It was targeted towards those guys who are mixing in the box mostly and just want to add a bit of analog vibe to their mix, and it's great for that. But what we found is that it's got some really good other uses as well, and that's what we're going to show you today. Hopefully these ideas give you a little bit of inspiration to use it in other exciting ways as well. A great way to use the Fusion is to add clarity and focus to your vocals. In fact, it's so good it might even end up in your vocal chain. So I've been given a track, and it's a singer-songwriter track, and the vocals in it are really, really nice, but perhaps a little bit darker than I'd want. And indeed, the Fusion is really good at adding a really nice kind of sparkle and polish to a vocal. So primarily I'm going to use the violet EQ and the high frequency compressor sections. So I'm going to add all the air and clarity with the EQ, and then tame any harshness that comes with the high frequency compressor. And then with the help of a metering plugin I'm using, I'm going to just tweak the output trim just to make sure that we are, when we're bypassing, we're getting a similar level so that we're not being fooled by any gain or anything like that's happened. Here we go, have a listen.
Shift your eye, focus to me, and we're ready to go. Don't look down, keep your mind open, forget what you know. Sometimes you gotta slow down and just let it flow. Ooh-oh. Now's your time, take the ride just to see where it goes. What's the worst? Back it up and take the highs with the lows. Live a day to remember. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to make mistakes. It's all part of the game. Do it anyway. And if we could fly to the stars in the sky, what a life we're living. And if we could heal the scars and the lies, no, it doesn't get better than this.
The Fusion is also magic on drums. It's got a feature that's not immediately obvious, but when you use it on drums, it brings so much energy to it. So I've got this drum mix, and I definitely need some love from the Fusion, and I think for this I'm going to be using pretty much every section of the Fusion. As a general rule with drums, I'd always stick the transformer on. High pass filter as well, maybe at least 30 Hertz, just to get rid of some of that low end gumph that no one likes. And in particular, I really like how the drive and density hits on the drums. So I'm probably going to use these, if not actually, they're very close to the maximum level they'll go to. We're going to use the EQs, sweeten the high ends again with the high frequency stuff, but because this is kind of like a Pultec EQ, it does the Pultec kick trick thing. So if you set this to sort of 50 or 70 Hertz, give the low end a little bit of a boost. It's never just like a round bump or bell-shaped EQ. It's kind of like some weird curves like the Pultecs do. And it always sounds really, really nice, and it's clean sounding and really usable. This section, the high frequency compressor, can be changed by holding down the in button for about 4 seconds. And that will now change to a full range compressor, still with a threshold control, but the crossover knob becomes a wet-dry blend. So all the way up you're going to hear like a smashed version of the drums, or at least heavily compressed if it's certainly this high, compared to a dry signal when it's all the way down, and that means you can just blend the two signals together, which is always really, really useful on drums. And then finally I'll add a little bit of space and width just to increase the perceived size of the drums. But with all these things going on, I will have to trim the output down a little bit, and I'm using a metering plugin again just to try and get this as close as I can to an equal level when I'm bypassing, just to give it the fairest kind of listening experience for you guys. Have a listen and see what you think. In particular, I want you to listen to the snare drum once I've done all this work. Snare drums are super important on songs, and I think you'll notice quite a big difference with like how boxy the snare drum sounds when this is bypassed compared to how like sweet and snappy and crisp it sounds with it engaged. So have a listen to that and see what you think. I really love the Fusion on acoustic guitars as well. You can add so much more width and body and depth to it. Let's have a look. So now I've got this beautiful pair of acoustic guitars recorded in stereo. And again, I'm going to use all the sections of the Fusion. I'll pretty much always use the transformer section. I will roll off the low end with the high pass filter. Probably there will be okay. And I'm going to utilise some of the drive density. That's going to really sort of thicken it up a bit and make it feel a bit more forward, punchy, I don't know, something like that. I'll sweeten and fatten this with the EQ, as I did with the drums. It's a very, very similar kind of thing. I'll be utilising the listen mic part of the compression again, because I think the parallel compression with this acoustic guitar, as it will with most, I think, will just make it feel more full-bodied and more confidently played. And then I think you'll find that actually once we get into the space and width part, this is where the magic's really going to happen on these. I'm going to use the output trim again to balance this, just so that when we're bypassing at the end, we're going to get a more fair response from this as far as, you know, volume not jumping up and down. But let's have a listen and see what this sounds like. And of course, the Fusion excels on the mix bus. Here's how I like to use it. So I've got a mix to work on here, and it's a little bit of a congested mix. There's a lot going on in it. And again, I think I'm going to use pretty much every section of the Fusion. As always, stick transformers on. They always sound amazing. And I will always, again, use the high pass filter just to clean up some of the low end. I might even put that a little higher, we'll see. With mixes, again, I'll probably go pretty heavy on the drive and density. I think that always adds loads of extra nice harmonics and saturation to it. It's quite hard to go overboard with the Fusion, so it's quite a nice thing. As before with the other sections, I will sweeten and fatten this. It's a lovely EQ. It's really hard to use too much of it. I might go a little overboard for the purpose of this demo, but I think you'll get an idea of what that's going to do on a mix. Again, I'm going to utilise the listen mic compressor on this. I really love that parallel compression that this does, and certainly on a final mix, this works really, really well and blended in. I'll hit this quite hard and then blend in a fairly distorted version of the mix with the dry version as well. And as always, a little bit of width in the space, do some really nice things tonally and spatially to this. So have a listen. I think this will sound great.
Give myself a chance to hesitate. Nor would I concern myself with thoughts involving someone else, just you. Just you.
So there's some great ways you can use the Fusion. Hopefully it inspires you to use it in your mixes in different ways as well. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got loads more content like this coming. And if there's any other bits of gear like this you want to see, let us know in the comments.